welcome to LMR Live on location in Charleston, South Carolina, on the charming College of Charleston campus. We are in the most exquisite home right now, the let me get it right, the Balach house. Walked in and it was like I was transported to another time, to another era. So, very exciting. All of our friends back in Oxford, Mississippi, thrilled that you're tuning in. Remember, we want to hear from you. This is edutainment. We're entertaining, we're educating, and we want to interact with you. So, also, any of our viewers who are tuning in, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York, wherever you may be, we are glad you're with us on our music revolution. So, who do I have sitting next to me? I have some pretty illustrious faculty and musicians who are based here out of Charleston, South Carolina. Let's meet these guests. We have three, oh goodness, I can't just categorize you as composers because you're much more than just that, but we're going to start there. Composers, we have Edward Hart, we have Paul Sanchez, and we have, I'm going to get this right, Yiorgos Vassilandonakis. I butchered it already. Yiorgos Vassilandonakis. Close enough? Yes. You'll keep me? You won't boot me yet? All right. Let's give a warm welcome to these three fantastic gentlemen. So first off, I'm curious, have any of you been in this space before?
Yes,
I have not.
Yes, this is a great place for a party. I've been doing
Oh, okay. Are we partying afterwards?
If you say so.
All right. We'll get the mint juleps and we'll have a good time. So you've been in this space before. First time for you,
First
Paul?
time for me.
It's really neat. I came in here with Tiffany. You back in Oxford. Remember Tiffany, who just sang so beautifully in Oxford? Walked in. I was like, we could have concerts here. We could do all sorts of things. First time for you, Yiorgos?
Yes, first time.
Fantastic. So let's start with a little bit of your backgrounds, where you're from and what brought you here, how you ended up here. Let's start with you. I feel like I want to call you Mr. Charleston.
Well, I'm from about 6 blocks from here, and didn't go far. And in fact, I'm a graduate of the College of Charleston. Went off to graduate work, got a gig in my hometown, and been here ever since. In fact, I live now about 40 steps from where I grew up, where my mother still lives. So I'm raising my children in my same neighborhood.
I love that. I mean, I mentioned that to you yesterday at lunch. I think it's so, especially by today's standards where we're just short-lived everywhere, and it's just helter-skelter. I think that's really a gift to have that stability and that connection, and you can really speak to the history of the community and the institution, which I think sometimes by today's standards we're always like, what's new, let's go, as opposed to how did we get here. But this has to be balanced with some outside perspective. So Paul, how did you end up here?
It's been a long and winding road, but so I was born in South Dakota, and then I was in Texas for a bit, then in Spain for 2 years, and then to New York for about 5 years, and then Illinois and Texas, and then finally here in Charleston. And Kayleen and I feel very at home here in Charleston. We've got wonderful colleagues, beautiful place to live, and here we are.
Fantastic. Yiorgos.
Yeah, I've been in Charleston for about 10 years, almost 10 years now, so I'm an adopted Charlestonian, I guess.
Yeah.
But I've had a long journey, as like Paul. Was born in Crete, which is the south of Greece. Lived in Athens. I've lived in the West Coast for 20 years. I've lived in Paris for a few years, and back here. So, been around.
I think we have a nice balance on this couch. What do we think? I think this is great. It's like the forming of wonderful worlds. So what is it, from each of your perspectives, that sets the College of Charleston apart? Because I'm utterly blown away. I mean, whether it's walking down the halls and having students just approach you and say, hello, are you here to do the master class? Or folks in the town, or the colleagues that you work with, the people. There's something, I think, special about here. What is it?
You want to start?
Go!
Well,
and don't
I
be
mean,
shy. Brag, brag,
I'm not,
brag.
Don't worry. So I think the city does inform everything we do. I mean, the city is I think, a historic and gracious place, and I think our students tend to be happy. They get to walk around in the late winter when it's 70 degrees outside and the azaleas are already in bloom. We have a terrific faculty, and because we're in Charleston, we probably get a faculty that really on paper may not deserve, because so many people want to come and live here. We get these talented, I'm not speaking of myself, of course, but these wonderfully talented people to come here and want to live and work, and so it really just benefits the college, and I think it's just a wonderful place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gentlemen?
I mean, I fully agree with everything that Edward shared. I think for me, what really makes it special is that we've got this environment with wonderful colleagues who are interested in collaborating, and not just within the department, but also across departments with classics and English, and we've been able to do some interesting projects together. That's wonderful. And for me personally, I feel supported by my colleagues, not only as a pianist, but also as a composer, and those two things are absolutely integral to what I do, and I feel like I can do that here, which is
great.
wonderful. Yeah.
Yiorgos?
I would speak to our approach to how we do stuff here. Like, we are small, and that's a great thing. Usually music departments are huge, and everything gets lost. I mean, we're tight and small, and that reflects to how we teach our students. Everybody's like treated as a person, which I really enjoy doing that. And I get to work really hard, which I like. The environment is right there, so it allows you to be who you are and become better and put the hours in. So it's a great environment to be in.
It's wonderful. So the undergraduate program is all Bachelor of Arts, correct?
That's right.
That's right. So, and you have a wonderful music, it's not music business, is it?
Arts management.
Arts management.
Right.
Do a lot of your music students take advantage of that track?
Absolutely. And so we only offer a Bachelor of Arts. And the reason why that is kind of effective is that it allows our students to double major if they'd like. And a number of them double major in arts management and music. But we also get some very strange couplings, biology and music, or chemistry and music. And I think that's at the heart of the liberal arts experience, that we want to produce these well-rounded students. Even if they don't double major, they will have to take robust general educational requirements. So I think they'll be interesting people when they come out of here.
For sure, and I think also able to make money and have a career. I think, for a long time, I think liberal arts degrees got a bad rap. And I'd be curious, I feel like that's really changing in the sense that we're not just, you can't just be in one definitive track and think I'm only going to do this. And it sounds like the way the College of Charleston sets this up with people double majoring or various things, you're making yourself much more, you're setting yourself up for the opportunity to be independent and make a good living. Do you find that with your grads?
Absolutely.
I think that's the ultimate track for any person. You become an educated person.
That's right.
And you also learn how to problem solve. I mean, that's one of the greatest life skills, right?
Sure.
It's not just learning some information and then spitting it out. It's about becoming well-versed and being able to actually educate yourself throughout your life. And
Yes,
how else can you learn that?
Right, and I mean, my personal opinion, students nowadays, no disrespect, I have some here that are wonderful, but the problem-solving skills are not, I find, as keen sometimes as they were even 10 years ago. Do you find that in your teaching? And I think that's why this approach to the education is so important, so they are learning those problem-solving skills when they're out.
I think the key is that there's really no straight path in music. You make a life in music, and it involves so many moving parts. It's not just a simple thing where you do a degree and then you have a job and that's it, right? And so liberal arts training is really training for life. I mean, this really reflects what Yiorgos was saying. And so if you become a more well-rounded person, I talk with my students about this all the time, if you have a passion for something that maybe is only tangentially related to playing the piano, for example, you need to study that, and you need to understand why that's important to you, and that will enrich your life and will make you a better musician as a result.
And when you're doing something you're passionate about, you're going to invest so much more of yourself in, as opposed to just sort of along for the ride. So I want to share a few highlights about each of you with our viewers. And are we good sound-wise? Are we good with everything? Wonderful, wonderful. So let's talk about Edward Hart first. Your music has been performed in the US, Latin America, Africa, and Europe, including performances in New York, Los Angeles, and on and on and on, even the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. I want to share some quotes. I love the quotes about each of you. This is just like the most fun. Newspapers have described your music as spiritual and emotional, clearly visual, well-crafted, smartly scored, and cast in an accessible style that clearly communicates to audiences. Great sweep and strong appeal. Those are great words.
Go on, please.
I know, seriously, more and more and more. I mean, I love that because for me, I'm not a composer, but for me, a great work is when I get the visual. I mean, and not my visual is different from someone else's, but it's just like it takes, like, all of the senses come alive. And I'm like, yeah, and I've listened. I agree. You have works for violin, piano, guitar. You have a big thing coming up, yes? Your piece is going to be opening the 2019-20 season with...
Right, so I've got an opening violin concerto that's going to happen with the Charleston Symphony in September, and then in the closing concert, I've got a new work that's going up for string quartet and orchestra, and the commission was to commemorate the 350th anniversary of the founding of Charleston, and the string quartet is the Shanghai Quartet, which is just a real honor to be able to write for that group.
Absolutely.
They're as good as I'll ever do.
Now, when I say this next statement, I mean it sincerely. They really picked the right person. They picked Mr. Charleston to write this work for the anniversary. Seriously, who was in on the meetings? I mean, did that come up? I mean, who else could they pick?
I'm sure my wife just rolled her eyes. Somewhere wherever she is, she rolled her eyes.
I mean it. Now, when is that exactly taking place? Because I might come back.
April 17th and 18th, 2020.
How fantastic.
Yeah, come on.
That's wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And I should also say that you're professor of music and chair of the music department.
I am.
And something Edward shared with me yesterday that I just think any department chair that's watching or someone who thinks they might want to become, you teach freshman theory.
I do.
I think that's brilliant.
I love teaching freshman theory.
Share why you love it.
Well, I love the material, but I also love the fact that I, as chair, will get to know every single kid that comes to the program. And it's fun for me because I get to know them when they first walk in, and I can watch them progress and leave as kind of different people. It's just exciting to get to know them, for an entire year and then watch their progress going forward. So it's a real honor.
I think that's a key to why there's not the main key, but a key to the success here is the fact that, leadership wanting to be vested in part of their journey from the get-go in that course that a lot of kids are scared of.
Right.
Or causes the pains. At least it does at Ole Miss. I don't know what it did
Rightly
for me
so,
back
it's
in the
scary.
day. But to know that you're a main leader of this ship of the music department is vested in you that way, I think that's a really nice thing. All right, Paul.
Uh-oh.
Here we go. I mean, 2 times we just did this. It was a different structure though last week, but 2 times. I mean, I feel like I've known Paul forever. And we've only known each other a couple weeks.
It's great.
It's fantastic.
It's
so just to share a few highlights about you and throw in some of these quotes too, because I think they're so fun. So Paul has concertized in North America and Europe, appeared on CBS national television and in radio broadcasts nationwide. Paul is a pianist and a composer. Okay, let's do a quote. A magnificent achievement, a work of great innovation and hypnotic effect, impossible to walk away from unmoved. I read that in Oxford too because I like this idea that you're transcended somewhere, and that's what happened at that concert in Oxford. I mean, everyone just couldn't stop raving about Paul's music and getting to work with you. They really were just so humbled and honored. And
As was I. Thank you.
And I think the concert was just really such a beautiful success. Sometimes, correct me if I'm wrong, do you ever go to concerts and you know it's going to be all by a certain composer or one thing, and I sort of go like, oh my gosh, it's going to all be the same. Am I the only person that does this?
No.
No. And even when I'm planning my students' recitals, I'm like, variety is the key. So, but here we have this, the works of Paul Sanchez, and it was anything but the same. It was all over, and Kayleen was exquisite also. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about Yiorgos. So, ventured into chamber, vocal, orchestral, opera, film, electronic, and multimedia genres. I love these quotes. A fascinating collection of sounds, inventive performance techniques, some of which are first-time events, and intimate, soft poetry that consumed the audience, lingering sonorities and delicacies. Did you guys pay people to write these things?
I think they're doing more creative work than we do, actually.
I just
Right.
love it. I love it. I mean, because so much of your work is inspired by text initially, right? Then the music happens, and then it inspires more text. It's great. What I find really interesting is your work, and I know a lot of our students were intrigued by this, as a film composer and arranger in Hollywood, in the indie movie scene, and it said you had independent films, television documentaries, and commercials, as well as theme park ride at Universal Studios. And I'll say you're also a conductor, yes? Fantastic. So would you talk a little bit about that arena of Hollywood or writing for that versus being in an academic environment?
Yeah,
Is it
that-
different?
It feels such a long time ago now because it was in the 90s.
Yeah.
So, but it was a school for me. It was schooling. I mean, it was how to do things quickly and effectively and pleasing others, directors and all that. So it was a great training while I was also developing my concert writing skills. And for me, it's all the same. I mean, I still do the same thing. It's just the vehicles are different.
Got it.
I enjoy a little bit more doing writing concert works because I'm the boss. So I like that. It's like your vision,
Right.
as opposed
For
to
sure.
right.
Yeah,
As
Well,
opposed
I
to
could imagine with certain deadlines or certain parameters, does it hinder the creative process as opposed to
No.
when you're no?
it
okay.
doesn't actually.
Okay.
I mean, hindering. I mean, limitations are always good for creativity, right?
True.
So having to fit what you're doing and your vision with someone else's vision is always a good thing.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that, but
Okay.
the deadlines were really short. So
Like,
that's
explain for us.
like
what's
a week.
A week.
Yeah, I mean,
And how long of a work in a week?
I've done like half an hour of music in a week.
Oh my gosh.
I've done an hour of music in 2 weeks.
That blows my mind because I would be just stuck. I mean, I'm not a composer, but I'd be like, oh my God, what do I do? Did you have to have a certain routine in order to produce?
Yeah, like no sleep.
That's a good routine, right? Yeah. Sure.
No sleep. Yeah. Well, I'm curious, and one of our students wanted to know, do you each have a routine or method that works best for you for the creative output? Because in different composers I've talked to, some people are, it's more just happens, others very regimented. Could each of you speak to that, how that process is?
Okay, so I try to be very free with what I do, like not have any kind of regiment, like you call it. But there's a definitely a technical foundation that's there. Most of it is a mind game for me. Like you have these like two characters in your brain that kind of talk to each other. One is a creative one is an editor, and one is like the disciplinarian. The other one is the kid at play. So there's always this kind of internal dialogue that goes on. And in the beginning, really, it's difficult. When you start writing a work, it's very difficult because you don't know what it is.
Right.
As you go on and define it more and more, it has its own life. So little by little, it gets a little easier, but it's difficult. And no, there's no like preset. For me, not even hours. I mean, I work around the clock. Edward's a little more structured than I am, but I'm like all around, at home, in my office, in a park, just
When it happens.
like all the time. With
Or
like
let me make
short
sure I understand.
breaks.
So once
Yeah.
you're in that gear, is it like I'm in that gear and I may sort of subconscious it for a little bit while I'm doing other things, but then when it comes present, I just go with it?
It's there all the time. I mean, sometimes, like you're cooking or something, it's
Right.
like you burn things. Because
Right.
all of a sudden you're trying to solve a problem.
Yes.
Or, walking around is actually a great composing vehicle. 'Cause
Like
you just-
Beethoven, right?
Yeah, Beethoven did it. We're not anywhere near his,
Well, I want to ask Saundra about this, but I all the time ask my students, I've memorized my music by walking. My favorite way to test myself is walking outside. I walk in the tempo of the piece. Can I hear everything in my head while walking it? And can I lip sync it or make it happen so you're feeling that rhythm and going with it as opposed to the practice room?
Yeah, I mean, that's, one of the greatest things about composing is making it physical. Like, instead of being in your head, you actually walk with it, you move with it, you air guitar, you know, with it. All
I
that
love
stuff.
it.
Yeah, you
That
have
would have
to.
been a good game. We could
Yeah.
have done like air instruments. All right. Oh, I like that. All right. Paul.
I mean, I think everybody has their own process, but I was thinking about the free translations of Li Ching Chao, which you sang so beautifully last week and we'll do again this weekend. You know, that piece, I probably spent 6 months just with the text and just sort of looking at it on a daily basis and reading other texts that was somehow related in terms of Chinese poetry of the same era. And then I got a phone call from the clarinetist and he said, hey, the deadline got moved up. I said, okay, I'm ready. And so, I mean, I think for me, typically, I'll spend months and months and months just kind of, everything is here and just dealing with the text. But I think the actual writing process of that piece was over maybe 2 days. Does that sound right to Kayleen?
Wow.
Which is, you know, it's only 15 minutes. It's not like doing a half hour and whatever that was. But you know, the writing process is usually fairly quick once I've had that time to sort of process. I don't know, Edward.
Got it.
Well, I think for me, you know, process changes depending on season of life.
For sure.
So, I mean, I'm a chair of the department, and so I'm on defense a lot of the time.
Right.
So I'm writing in the cracks and in between disasters, typically. And so, you know, and I would echo what Yiorgos said, that you always have to stay on. I mean, for me, I have to take whatever time I can to actually write, but you think of things away from your desk. And my children always tease me because sometimes I'll leave myself messages on the telephone in my office. And okay, in measure 68, do this with the French horn.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, you don't want to forget that
For
idea.
sure.
And so, you know, some of them, I think my strongest work has been written sort of under duress. I mean, when there's a baby that needs diapers changed all the time, okay, well, my son's sleep deprived, but that's okay. There's a deadline, and you just do it.
Here we go. Well, that was actually a question from Carley wanting to know, how do you find a balance between teaching, administrating, and your own composing? And is there one that takes precedence?
Oh, gracious. I think that's always a moving target.
Yeah.
And I think balance is always difficult in life in general, right?
For sure.
So we do 150 musical events a year, our department. So I can't be at all of them, but I'm at a lot of them. So just, you know, time management and also, you know, reminding myself that while my dean's here, so I probably shouldn't say this, that you know, my job is important and my life as a composer is important. There are other things in my life that are important as well. My wife and children, my friends, my faith. I mean, there's, you know, it shouldn't be all one thing, right?
Absolutely.
And so, you know, I can't claim to ever have the perfect balance. I tend to have to tweak it as I'm going. Sometimes I get out of whack, and my wife and children will remind me when that happens.
But I think we all do, and I think that's a misconception that a lot of people say, well, they're finding that balance, that perfect balance. I'm like, I don't think it exists, first off. I mean, I think it is constant, just like keeping oneself in check. And I think for going to college, the biggest lesson students learn is how to juggle. Like, it's that first time it's like, because everything in life can't be front burner.
Right.
You know, you have to decide right now, this is what is in the front, this is what's going to the back. And I think as long as you're consciously making those choices, it usually works out, you know, but helping those students to learn how to do that.
I have to chime in just for a second.
Please,
because
chime
Edward
away.
is talking about sort of, he needs to find time between the cracks. I can attest to this. I don't know about you, yours, but I can't tell you how many times in the last week I go knock on his door and I see him in there. He's looking at the piano, he's editing or composing, and I'm like, oh man, I'm going to interrupt him again. You know, but I'll tell you, every single time he is gracious. He opens the door. He's, hey, welcome. How are you? No matter what, he is the perfect gentleman, and he's always taking care of his faculty. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah. No.
I don't think he is. I don't think he is.
No,
I did.
I mean it.
That's fantastic.
It's amazing.
That's great. All right, so I want to jump to another question. Jesse, and this could be for any of you, when choosing texts from which to compose, is there a predetermined storyline? In other words, does the overarching narrative come first or the individual text itself?
So in the context of a song cycle, for example, well, I'll go, and then, you know. For me, no, absolutely not. So the texts that I tend to choose are usually, of course, not of course. For myself, I like to choose texts by the same poet. but that's usually it. And then I end up sort of living with them long enough that I can start to sort of form some kind of connections. And usually that turns into sort of a narrative that I impose onto the poetry. It's not something that was there.
Okay.
And then after that structure is there, then I can start composing a narrative that works structurally with the music, right? So that's the process for me.
Yeah, I would echo that. Also, my approach is one of respect. So if I'm picking text, it's already by itself, it's complete, right?
Mhm.
I mean, my piece on this is by Pablo Neruda. I mean, he's much, much higher than I am in his artistic vision, and it's complete. It doesn't need me to give it life. So if I'm playing with him, I need to bring something of my own to it. And I always start by the sound of the text. I mean, text, poetry has music in it, has rhythm in it, it has pitches even in it, the vowels, the consonants, it's already music. So I have to extract that music first and then see what can I do with this.
I love how you just said that.
Right.
I hope you got that. You guys got that? I love that. I mean, and I'm curious. I want to hear from you on this too, but I want to ask a question related first. So when singers come to your works, where do you want them to start? Should they start with the text? Should they start with the music? Or do they do both at the same time?
I think if I've done my job well, it's a new thing. So the song is a new work all of its own, separate from the actual poem. So I would want them to start with the music.
With the music?
Yeah.
Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a wonderful answer. I think sometimes the person might already be familiar with the poetry, and of course then it's already given to you. But I mean, I think what Yiorgos was saying about respecting the text, I'm sure we all feel the same way. This is it, you know, and hopefully we don't detract from what's there, right? But you know, I mean, you look at Schubert's writing, and there are reflections of the structure of the poetry in the deepest layers of the music. I mean, that's what it's all about, right?
But you also want to be there as well, not just not to take away from it, but you want to add.
Oh, no, of course. I'm
so
saying
you want
at a
to
minimum,
kind of,
we
it's
don't
like a marriage
away.
between the two artists, right? Where they create something new. I mean, you gotta have your own approach to it. You have to have something to say about it that's yours. Otherwise, you're not doing it a favor,
Right.
right? So,
Right.
yeah.
Same thing as the performer when whatever piece you're going to. I mean, this is a real
Right.
pet peeve of mine. You assign someone a piece, and they go and listen, you know, before they've done anything. And it's like, and they're, especially those young singers who maybe their reading, comprehension skills of the music aren't keen yet, they just instantly start the imitation process. And it's like,
Which doesn't happen with new music.
true, and that's
True.
Exactly, yes. So, but it's you know, saying there's a time and place to listen. It's important to listen, but that you're reading and comprehending and putting your mark on it with respect to the composer, to the poet, all of those things. Okay, curious. You.
Well, I think you can have two different experiences. If you're assigned a poem to set, if that's your commission, I want you to set that poem, or these poems, then it's, in some ways it's easy. I mean,
Yeah.
okay, there it is. What's maybe trickier in some ways, but also wonderful, is if I'd like you to write some songs on using the poetry of this particular writer, and you get to choose, and which is great, but sometimes it's hard to decide what you want to do. So one of the cycles that are going to be featured tomorrow is by Paul Laurence Dunbar, and I came to his poetry through another commission, and in that particular commission they said, we want you to write on a cycle on these 3 poems. Great. But that just made me discover this wonderful poet, and I had to go back, and when I had an opportunity to do it, pick the ones I wanted, it was great.
I love your reactions. I like to, and I want to know what Saundra's going to say on this, but with a lot of my students, I ask them to start with the text, to just really start there, get to know it. Even in your head, sort of what does it conjure up? You know, really starting there, and then seeing how this composer chose. I mean, what they come up with isn't going to be identical to what the composer did, unless, you know, they're familiar with Schubert's, you know, Fauré might have some conception. But, and then to be this detective, to really just sort of like, okay, how did Yiorgos get to that point with this text? You know, try to like decipher and dig deep as opposed to just, okay, this is the tune, here we go, you know. And I also think it's fun, and I keep mentioning Saundra, and I haven't called her out here, but I love to have students pick a piece just based on the poetry, giving them, okay, here are a bunch of songs, don't look at the music, read the text. Pick the poem that just like speaks to you, and then let's listen, you know. And so far, knock on wood, it's always worked. But anyways, let's transition. We have another amazing person to bring on to, and I have all these questions I'm not even getting to. Anyways, we are going to bring out another wonderful colleague from the College of Charleston. We are going to merge some worlds here. We're bringing another singer out, so I'm not solo here. Lyric soprano Saundra DeAthos-Meers. She has been heralded for the remarkable quality of both her vocal and dramatic presentations. I've watched some of them online, and I concur. Here are some quotes about her. Saundra imparted vulnerability and an elegant soprano. She delivered a virtuosic performance, a real charmer of a soprano. She made one love the character. Her coloratura flights and showed perfect timing. Don't you want to meet her? Don't you want to meet her? All right, let's bring out Saundra.
Okay.
Hello.
Oh, you're so sweet.
You're so sweet. Have a seat.
Guys.
Hey,
Welcome.
Please,
Okay.
snuggle.
I'll snuggle. He's sick though, so I'm gonna go close.
Yeah,
to my
come
phone.
this
Yes,
way.
true.
Yiorgos, we'll cuddle over here. That's
Well,
okay.
welcome.
Thank you.
So I got to meet you yesterday for the first time, and I got to enjoy one of her students performing on a master class that was just fantastic. And I'm just going to say to your face what I've said behind your back. The second I met you, I thought, I like her. I was like,
I said the same thing about her.
I just want to get to know you better. I mean, you exude just generosity and artistry. So
Thank you.
I mean that. Curious, what brought you to Charleston?
Him. It was no. Several things. First thing I did is I sang with Charleston Symphony 7 years ago, or so, and there were murmurings of a retirement possibly coming at that time, and I said, well, if a position opens up, just give me a call. I don't know where I'll be, you know, and at that time I had a baby boy, and he's 9 now, and I said, just give me a call. Well, I got a phone call in December and said, the position is open, why don't you apply? So I said, okay. I just received a tenure line where I was in Illinois, and I didn't know if it was what I wanted to do, but my husband and I decided I should give it a shot and just come check it out, and I love Charleston. I sang Micaela down here in Carmen, and my husband has sung here several times as well, so we have spent quite a bit of time here anyway and fell in love with the city. So I think it was a natural move in our life for sure.
Fantastic. So jump to what we were just talking about with assigning music, and first off, are you a person who enjoys assigning new music to your students? It's a tricky question to ask with the people she's surrounded, but I'm asking it.
No, I personally love contemporary music. I love to sing it. I love to tell the stories. I love the challenge of it as a musician. Believe me, I love singing Verdi and Puccini a lot. But I've really enjoyed learning his music and actually his music as well. I'm only singing one. I'm singing 7 of his, so
Right.
it's a little weighted this way. It's been a great challenge for me because I'm so used to the tonality of Puccini and Verdi and Mozart,
sure.
you know, and you get into these habits. And all of a sudden, he threw me off my game, and I had to sort of, wow, we're changing meters, and we're going all these major 7ths. Okay, I can do this. But anyway, it was a great challenge for me.
Right.
And I've also learned in being a new faculty member in a music department. I was in a theater department before. That starting with freshmen and sophomores, I want to give them all of this newer music. And then, you know, I have all these requirements where, you know, we have to do early Italian and all this. I'm like, but I really want to give you some Bossatieri, and I want to give you some other newer composers, living composers. but I'm not supposed to do that. Well, I did anyway. Just
Good. Woohoo!
I don't tend to follow the rules really well.
See, I
sorry.
knew it. She was my best friend because, yes. I mean, there are rules. I mean, but nothing is black and white.
Well,
It's
it's actually in the syllabus, but
Well, yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, I don't know your syllabus specifically,
it's not
but
mine.
you know, it's but I think some of this is changing, and I'm curious. Maybe it's just the circles that I'm keeping. But when I first started really being passionate about living composers and new music, so many people just I found, and I'm not calling anyone in particular out, but it was like they just didn't want to be bothered because you have to learn it. You have to. It's extra work, right? If you
can't
stick
just
with
turn
the
something
same
on,
things
no.
that you always assign, you can just. I mean, phone it in is harsh, but you can just phone it in.
You can phone it in.
And it's a huge commitment because especially if you're teaching it, you have to know it even better than if you're performing it to be able to. Do you find that, or do you think that's changing at all? Do you agree with what I'm saying?
It's hard to say since this is new for me here.
Yeah.
I'm sort of learning my way around. But I think typically yes. But I know that being challenged with this music now will help me then to challenge my students.
For sure.
And it's a conversation I've actually already had with Yiorgos a couple weeks ago, or a month ago, how much I would love for him to write an opera and us workshop it as part of a
Wow.
class. It is a priceless. It is priceless experience for these kids. I got to do it in grad school, and some of the hardest stuff and the things I worked the hardest on was this contemporary music, and I loved every second of it.
For sure.
I'm just not awesome at it, but I love working on it.
But I think that
You're wonderful
we have a
at it, no,
response.
really, yeah.
I
She's
hear
singing
people
well.
complain about trying to entice audiences to come try new things. How can we expect an audience to come try new things if even our own colleagues don't want to try new things? That's the way I look at it. That's how I fundamentally break it down. You can't expect the lay person to jump on board if you're not even doing it yourself. So I think it's important, and it is about collaboration. I mean, our art form is just it's beautiful in that sense. So it seems to make sense. So Carley wants to know, what is your favorite aspect of teaching applied voice?
The first lesson, when I hear the voice for the first time, and I can see what it's going to be in over our time together, and then watching that voice grow over 4 years. It's so exciting, and they don't know that that's what it's going to be. And you say them, they come in singing high color to our rep, and you go, no. I'm sorry, but you're not a color tour of it. But you know, just to see what the voice is going to become before they even know. That's one of my favorites.
How about you, Paul, with your piano students? Favorite part of applied?
Favorite part of applied teaching. You know, I think it's when a student starts to discover what she or he really loves and what they identify with the most, and then how I can help them fully realize that, or as much as I can possibly help them with that on that journey. That's pretty cool.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that like I'll be middle of the night, wake up.
Yeah.
Maybe this is my equivalent of the composer, and I'm like, phone, tell Alexis, da-ba-da-ba-da. My husband's like, what are you doing? You know, but it's those moments of like, you know, how can you connect the dots for this person? Because it's such a privilege that we get to work with these people one-on-one for 4 years, and all of that stuff is just is a gift.
It's a gift.
Saundra, so one of my students, Caitlin, back in Oxford, went to University of Illinois, so she was pretty excited. And she wanted to know if you had any advice on how, or to share how you made your connections in the world of opera. That's a big, broad one.
It's a very broad one. I never intended to be an opera singer.
Oh, do tell.
No. My bachelor's degree is in music education, and I intended to teach in school, get married, have kids, and I did the get married and have kids part. But I met my husband along the way, and he wanted to be an opera singer, so I just followed him along at auditions, and it's the best. When you walk into an audition without any expectation, you just go because you're invited along. So I sang, and then I started getting cast, and I was like, whoa, wait, I don't know if this isn't what I intended to do at all. So I don't know if I have advice for it except try it all. Try anything. Don't
See,
say
that's great advice. We've
don't-
yet to have a guest who hasn't said in some capacity some part of their career path was by accident. We've yet to meet the person. Maybe my two bookends here are going to say that, but I've yet to meet the person because, as you said, it was like you had this notion, this is what I'm going to do, but ta-da! You know, life takes you a different way. I think I'm putting my spin on what you
Please.
said, but you were open to just life and what was happening.
Go along with it.
Ride the
only
wave.
thing I wasn't ready or willing to do is go overseas.
For
My
sure.
husband had a son when I met him, so we weren't willing to leave the country because we would have left him.
Right.
That was the only thing that we said no to. But if you can go overseas, go.
Do it.
They have opera all the time. If you want to be an opera singer, that
That's
is.
pretty cool. I mean, were there accidental arrivals and points in the journey, or pretty?
I started off as an economics major.
Economics.
That's true.
Well, that's coming in handy now, right? A little bit, maybe.
I don't have that much money to worry about, honestly. Well, at the end of the day, Beethoven was more interesting than the gross national product, so I decided music would be a better fit for me.
Great. Yiorgos?
There's been a lot of intention in my life. I mean, I've wanted to do music since I was 4, and I knew I was going to be composing when I was in my teens. So that way, no, I very deliberately followed it. Charleston was kind of an accident, a happy accident.
Yeah.
I've always thought of myself living in a big city, and all of a sudden I'm in this great little beautiful city that actually is much more functional and allows me to work, and it's like I can have time and I can walk and I don't have to commute. So that was a very nice accident.
I'm similar in that. I always say I went to Oxford, Mississippi kicking and screaming because I was like, I'm not going to be in a big city. How's this going to work? But it's funny how when you're young, I don't think you think about what your lifestyle is going to be. And even with my students, we're looking at grad school. I'm like, yes, you want a great teacher, you want to know the program, but what do you want your lifestyle to be in the sense of day in, day out? Because that, I don't know, for me at least, it creates you the sense of happiness, or I don't want to say calm, but, you know, sense of happiness. I want to take a brief pause. I want to share a little video to, it's very brief, but it shows some highlights, some photos of the time we had in Oxford with Paul and Kayleen and Tiffany, and just share that with our viewers for a moment, and we'll be right back. Mississippi, and we're pretty busy here too, I would say so. Something I'm excited about, Paul, that, I mean, this was premeditated even before meeting you and the concert being spectacular, was assigning your music to students for Nats.
Thank
And
you. I'm honored. I'm so excited that they're doing it.
I'm thrilled, and they're just, so they'll be competing at our Mississippi State Conference. They're required English piece. There's going to be a strong contingency coming through the door, coming across, and it's going to be like, Paul Sanchez. Who's Paul Sanchez? Well, let me tell you. And it's the Paul T. Sanchez online, not the other Paul Sanchez.
There is another. That's
So,
another.
because that
That's right.
created a little, one of my colleagues was like, now, who are you bringing in? What? No disrespect to the other Paul Sanchez.
Just a little bit
but,
different stylistically,
Just a
right?
little
Yeah.
different approach, But I'm pretty excited about that. And I think that's a key to getting people motivated about. They see it coming across, and then suddenly it's not like, I'm not going to be the first person to try like whatever the product is. I guess
Oh,
it's sort of
and
like
they're-
oh, go ahead.
And they're singing it so beautifully. So I'm
Oh.
so excited. Carley and Maddi, Caitlin, all of them, just fantastic. So I'm excited to hear what they do.
They dove in head first and loved it. So, question for Saundra. This is great. So, our worlds collide. We run a aria intensive program at Ole Miss, and this January, our featured artist was Saundra Eddy, who I love, and Maddi, I love me too, so many singers. All right, Kayleen, chime in. So want to know, what was it like to work with Saundra Eddy from your perspective?
So we went to school together at Boston University at the Opera Institute, and she's younger than me. She was Carabino to my Susanna in Marriage of Figaro. And what's it like to work with her? It's positive, it's energetic, she's just a great gal, great singer.
She's a firecracker.
She's a firecracker. Yes.
So, a good experience.
Yes,
Not
absolutely.
surprised. I imagine you guys were just dynamic.
We were, and she actually has sung quite a bit with my husband as well, so the three of us have a very good relationship. I haven't seen her in forever, though, because she's all over the world.
She is. She may be watching. I mean, we did one of these with her in January, so she might be. I love Sandy.
Me too.
Another question for you. We must have lots of singers watching. Okay. What is your process of creating an artistic vision for the productions you direct? Great question.
My goodness. So this was the first production I've ever directed that we just finished, Dialogues of the Carmelites by Poulenc.
Love.
Yes. Well, we have a lot of women in our program, so it was really a good choice for them, and also just a beautiful opera and a wonderful story to tell.
For sure.
And my process, I read the text quite a bit, and I do as much background work in the opera as I can before I dive into the music. So I try to see the pathway of the story, and trying to find as much of the human part of the story as I can, and try to bring that out, because with young students who have no training, they have no acting training.
Right.
We have to very quickly be able to tell these stories. And in such a short amount of time, 6 hours a week of opera rehearsal, that's it. That's not enough time to really teach them acting skills, but I can teach them about the people and how to tell each person's story.
How was their journey within that story? Because that is
It was hard.
pretty hard.
It was hard. We had some really fun times, lots of laughing, but we also had some pretty sad times. Especially, we worked with a historian on faculty, Dr. Sandy Slater, who helped us develop those characters and learn about their background.
Fantastic.
And we had a lecture with her right before we started staging. The kids had already learned the music and knew essentially what it was about. But there was one slide on her PowerPoint where she listed the names of all the women, and they were real people. And we all just stood there in silence, and you could just start to hear the sniffing. That these are real people that we are portraying. They actually went through this. I'm getting choked up thinking about it.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was the beginning of the journey, and they were, once they saw that and realized how serious the story was.
And it's real.
It's real.
It's real.
They were all in.
Wow.
All in. And I'd never seen such commitment as I did from these people.
That's
We did have
beautiful.
a few gentlemen, of course.
Of course. Yes.
So I couldn't say these women.
And that can be hard for them.
It was.
I mean, my goodness. I mean, when you're, talking about balance, I mean, it's definitely not balanced in that sense. You've all, what, 2 male?
1, 2. Well, I had to cut a few because.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
but yes, I think we had 3 in
Okay,
the production.
okay.
Well, 5. Sorry, 5.
5. Okay. Yeah. So definitely a minority.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right, this is going to be an awkward segue, but we're going to do this.
Sorry.
We're going to, no, in the sense, we're going to do something lighthearted. We're going to lighten up.
Okay.
So we always play a game on LMR Live. And our game today is COC. You may be thinking College of Charleston, but no. It is the Composer Opera Challenge. Oh, I like that head bob back there. So what we're going to do, I'll explain in a minute. Let's pull up our little video to get us in the mood, and then I will explain how we are playing our game. again was brilliant, coming up with a clever game that ties us to our location and our folks. Each of these artists is going to receive a kazoo. And when they feel that they know the answer to one of the questions, they will blow in their kazoo so I know it is their turn. If they get the answer correct, they will get a point. You're going to have to help me be the accountants back there. If they get it wrong, one of our other contestants can guess. If both do not get it, we will help chime in. They're not that hard. What are we even doing? Let me rewind. We're going to do our version of Jeopardy. So these are going to be statements of things related to Charleston or the College of Charleston. And then if you feel you know the answer, which is actually a question in Jeopardy style, you will say so. So what am I talking about? For instance, Gershwin folk opera set in Catfish Row, modeled after Cabbage Row. Anyone know the answer? Porgy and Bess. So if you were like, I know it, and you will answer. Yes? We cool? All right. Let you pick your instrument.
Thank you.
Lovely. Lovely.
Thank you. All right.
Lovely. You get to be blue. Yes. Lucky blue. All right.
Nice. Which ending?
So, oh yes, we should all practice our kazoo playing. So I believe it's the bigger end, and you sort of hum when you blow, right? Oh, I love this. Oh my God.
Whoa, how do you?
High.
Seriously?
Oh, no. Hum. You have to hum.
Other way. Other end.
Hum.
No, that
All
was
right.
you.
It's me.
Oh.
I think mine is defective.
I think we gave Paul, we've rigged the game. We've given him a gimpy kazoo.
I think we have
So,
to.
So we don't have to.
Just, we'll go with your hum. We'll
It
go with
doesn't
your
do-
But I predict that there's going to be a work that comes out with
Try from the
kazoo.
top.
I'm going to just predict it right now. All right, here we go.
All right.
This famous fortified seawall looks over the harbor and the island of. Yes, sir.
The battery.
Yes. What is the battery?
Sorry.
Ding, 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 ding. No, we take it.
All
We
right.
take it. All right. Very nice.
You got it anyway. It's okay.
Next. At this venue, one can find America's oldest landscaped gardens, which date back to the late 18th century. Yes, Mr. Sanchez.
What is Middleton Place?
Yes. All right. All right.
This thing is defective.
You went to Eastman, right?
Oh! Wow. All right.
All right. Actor Bill Murray was given this title by Charleston's minor league team, the River Dogs.
Given the title?
He was given this title. He was given this title by Charleston's minor league team. I suddenly went southern. Minor league team. Anyone have an idea?
No.
This one's hard. I love that no one knows. He was given the title Director of Fun. Director of Fun. So I didn't know that, but that does make sense, doesn't it? I like Bill Murray. All right. Next one. On this Charleston street, one can find the iconic Rainbow Row with its lovely pastel-colored homes. They're being so nice.
East Bay Street.
Yes!
This is not a fair game.
You don't think?
No.
You know he was a tour guide as well.
Is it still
No, I-
East Bay
yeah.
down there?
Yeah.
Is it still called East Bay?
I
down
That's
didn't
what I was
know
wondering. There's
that.
battery.
All right, let me
Yeah,
go broad
battery.
here. I'm not trying to show favoritism. It's just happening accidentally. All right. A movie with Nicole Kidman and Jude Law that was primarily shot in Romania but had some scenes shot in Charleston. Nicole Kidman, Jude Law, and Renee Zellweger.
Mountain something. Mountain something, but I don't remember the title.
Cold Mountain.
No. Something
No.
Mountain.
Oh, it is.
Is it Cold Mountain?
Cold Mountain. Yes, you're
Mountain.
right.
Yeah.
You're
Hey,
right.
Yorgos.
Watch
Awesome.
this Cold Mountain. Got it. All right.
Tiffany's over
No
there.
clue helping either there, right? All right. Here we go. You all know this, so be ready. Have your kazoos handy. This symbol of hospitality dates back.
Wow, come on.
I mean, I even know this one.
Pineapple.
Yes. We have our winner. We have our winner. I'm thrilled. Earned.
Bravo.
Now, had I really been fantabulous, I would have brought a crown or something for the King of Charleston. I'm going to work on that.
King of Charleston, that's nice.
I love it. So, but just a couple others that we had, because I find these things interesting. The two colors that were the original spirit colors for College of Charleston, but were changed when the athletics program began competing against the Citadel. Know this? What is blue and white? The traditional Irish sport commonly played in Charleston. Golf. Hurling. Hurling. Oh, I like that he didn't know that one. I love it. I love it. The infamous pirate who terrorized the harbor of Charleston.
Steve Bonnet.
Oh, I have, okay, interesting.
What do you
I have
have?
Edward Teach, a.k.a. Blackbeard.
Yeah,
Okay.
him too, but Steve Bonnet, he was executed on the battery,
Wasn't he a family member?
probably. we're all
I
cousins.
want a tour. Like, I mean, I didn't know. I mean, Tiffany's doing a great job, but I want a tour. One more. This late night comedian grew up on James Island in Charleston County.
Stephen Colbert.
Yes.
They were classmates, weren't they? Weren't
We
you?
went to school together.
Did you really?
Yeah.
How fun is that? Oh, is this the Velveeta?
Oh,
He was in the band with you?
He was in a high school band with me, yes.
Okay. But that's a different band.
Yes, I have
So you only fessed up to one band
I have
at
a
lunch.
but
there's
rock and roll past.
dark rock and roll
Very
past.
dark.
Who
I
knew?
don't- Yeah, I know.
All right. So what was the name of that band? I know the one band was named Velveeta.
The one that Stephen Colbert was in was called Shot in the Dark. We were terrible. We were awful. But he was actually very musical. He is very, very musical.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Anyone else in a band ever?
I was.
Yes?
Yeah. You?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
All-
type of
they all
band?
have
Your
rock.
dark rock.
Rock?
I played a lot of rock. In
A
my
lot of
teens.
rock?
Oh yeah.
Nice. Paul?
Mine was more of a Beatles cover band.
Beatles cover band.
It was a lot of fun.
See, this is what we really want to know. Yes, Saundra?
80s cover band.
Nice.
Of course.
I am a product of the 80s for sure.
Oh, me too. I was in a very brief, it was a band in high school. It wasn't so good. But it was a fun experience, just to pretend I was like that rock star. Yeah. So lots of people to thank. Lots of people to thank. I want to thank the College of Charleston, and I want to thank the music department. I want to thank the whole entity here for allowing us to come and be part of this collaboration, which has just been so fun and continues tomorrow night. If anyone local is watching, giving a concert tomorrow night, 7:30, and it will feature music by these three composers. And Saundra will be on the concert, as will other folks. The students that come with me, we're all going to be on this together. It's going to be a good time. Come check it out. I want to thank Carley and Maddi, who are here working the live stream. This is their first time in these positions. Carley is our live stream technician, and Maddi is our sound technician, and they're doing an awesome job. And one of the main missions of the Living Music Resource is giving these students opportunities that give them skills to really be marketable in today's world of music, and I'm proud of what they are doing. I want to thank Tiffany Gamble, Ole Miss alum and Director of Special Events and Development at the College of Charleston. She is just spectacular and really is the person who made this possible. I want to thank our viewers. Thank you for continuing to be part of our music revolution. And what things you want to know, things you want us to do, reach out, give us a shout. But edutainment, we're going to keep bringing it to you. And as I always say, the music research revolution continues. Thank you.